The red dust of Jouberton hung thick in the afternoon heat, coating Thabo's worn-out Converse sneakers in a fine, rusty powder. He moved with a fluidity that defied the rough terrain, his body popping and locking to the Amapiano beat blasting from a portable speaker. The log drum bass line rattled the corrugated iron fence of his mother's small house. Inside, the atmosphere was far less rhythmic. Mama Left stood at the doorway, a dishcloth in her hand and disappointment etched into the deep lines of her face. She did not understand the intricate language of dance. She only understood the language of survival, and to her, gyrating in the street was a waste of precious time. "Thabo, will that noise pay the electricity bill?" she shouted over the music, her voice sharp enough to cut through the heavy bass. Thabo ignored her, spinning on one heel, his eyes closed. He was visualizing the stage at the Matlosana Mall, the cheering crowds, and the prize money that would change everything. He was 21, jobless, and entirely consumed by the dream of becoming a legend. But the streets of Klerksdorp were watching him closely. A group of young men sat on upturned crates by the spaza shop across the road, their eyes narrowed in calculation. They were the Matlosana movers, the reigning champions, and they did not like upstarts. Thabo wiped sweat from his brow, knowing that his ambition was painting a dangerous target on his back. The Klerksdorp taxi rank was a chaotic symphony of honking horns, shouting conductors, and the smell of roasted mealies. Thabo navigated the maze of Toyota Quantums with his headphones on, trying to block out the noise. He was meeting his secret weapon, a girl named Nality, who worked at the Chicken Licken near the terminus. Nality was not a dancer, but she had an eye for aesthetics that Thabo desperately needed to polish his image. She greeted him with a warm hug, smelling of lemon wipes and hope. "You're late, T-Man," she teased, handing him a cold drink. The movers were here earlier. Vusi was bragging about a new routine they bought from a choreographer in Soweto. Thabo's stomach tightened. Buying routines was technically legal, but morally bankrupt in the street code. "Let them buy moves," Thabo said, feigning confidence he didn't feel. "I have soul. You can't buy that." Nality looked at him skeptically. "Soul doesn't pay entry fees, Thabo. You need a sponsor, someone with pull." She lowered her voice, looking around. "I heard Mrs. Kumalo is looking for talent." Thabo froze. Mrs. Kumalo was the wife of the owner of the biggest tavern in Orkney. She was known for her wealth, her distinct taste in young men, and her vindictive streak. "I'm a dancer, Nality, not a blissy," Thabo snapped, though the thought lingered in his mind like a persistent, offbeat drum. He needed an edge, and the deadline was looming. The tavern in Orkney was dimly lit, smelling of expensive cognac and old secrets. Thabo sat in a plush velvet booth, feeling entirely out of place in his faded denim jacket. Across from him sat Mrs. Kumalo, a woman who wore her wealth like armor. Her nails were long, painted a scandalous crimson, and she tapped them rhythmically against her glass. "So, you are the boy who thinks he can outdance Vusi," she purred, her eyes scanning him with intensity that made him shift uncomfortably. "I don't think, ma'am. I know," Thabo replied, trying to keep his voice steady. She laughed, a low, throaty sound. "Confidence. I like that. Vusi is arrogant. He lacks finesse." She leaned forward, the gold chains around her neck glinting. "I can ensure you get the prime slot at the competition. I can ensure the judges notice you. I can even buy you the best wardrobe in Klerksdorp." Thabo swallowed hard. "And what do you want in return, ma'am?" Mrs. Kumalo smiled, a predator looking at a wounded gazelle. "Companionship, Thabo. My husband is always away on business. I get lonely. A young star like you could keep me entertained." It was a deal with the devil, wrapped in Gucci. Thabo thought of his mother's disappointed face, the sneers of the Matlosana movers, and the dusty streets of Jouberton. He slowly reached out and took the glass she offered. "Call me Zanil," she whispered, sealing his fate. Weeks flew by in a blur of exhaustion and deception. By day, Thabo practiced in the scorching sun, perfecting the intricate footwork of the Pittori variant of Amapiano. By night, He was whisked away in a tinted SUV to Zanil's mansion in the suburbs. He wore new clothes now, Italian tapered trousers and bucket hats that cost more than his mother's monthly grant. To the streets, he was just hustling hard. To Naledi, he claimed he had found a corporate sponsor interested in youth development. She believed him because she wanted to believe in him. "Your skin is glowing, T-Man," Naledi noted one afternoon as they shared a Gatsby. "Stress-free living," Thabo lied, avoiding her eyes. The guilt gnawed at him, but the benefits were intoxicating. Zanil had paid off the registration fees and even slipped him cash to give to his mother. Mama Lef stopped complaining about the noise, thinking her son had found a job. But the Matlo Santa movers were suspicious. Vusi cornered Thabo outside the community hall one evening. "You're walking tall for a rat," Vusi spat, shoving Thabo's shoulder. "New kicks, fresh fade. Who's funding you? Or are you stealing from the collection plate?" Thabo slapped Vusi's hand away. "Focus on your steps, Vusi. You're going to need it." The confrontation was brief, but Thabo saw the hatred in Vusi's eyes.
It was personal now.
The competition wasn't just about dance, it was about dominance. 3 days before the competition, disaster struck. Thabo arrived at his usual practice spot behind the old library to find the Matlo Santa movers rehearsing. They were laughing, high-fiving, and executing a sequence of moves that stopped Thabo's heart cold. It was his sequence. The specific spider crawl, transition into the whistles, moves he had developed in the privacy of Zanil's lounge, were being performed perfectly by Vusi. Thabo watched from the bushes, nausea rising in his throat. How did they know? He hadn't shown Naledi the full routine yet. The only person who had seen it was
Zanil.
She often watched him practice in her living room, sipping wine and clapping in delight. Betrayal washed over him, cold and sharp. He stormed her house that evening, bypassing the security guard who now knew him by name. He found Zanil by the pool on the phone. "Yes, he's ready. It will be a show to remember," she was saying. She hung up and smiled when she saw him. "Thabo, darling." Thabo didn't smile back. "You sold me out. Vusi has my routine." Zanil's expression didn't change. She took a sip of her drink. "I didn't sell you out, Thabo. I merely leveled the playing field. Drama brings crowds. If you win with a stolen routine, it's boring. If you win by improvising something better, you're a legend." Her logic was twisted, cruel, and terrifyingly accurate. She was playing a game with his life. Thabo stormed out of Zanil's mansion, his mind racing. He couldn't use his prepared routine. Vusi would perform it first and make Thabo look like the copycat. He had 48 hours to reinvent his entire set. He ran all the way to Naledi's house, banging on her door at midnight. She opened it, bleary-eyed and confused. "Thabo, what's wrong?" He collapsed onto her stoop, tears of frustration stinging his eyes. "I need help. I need to change everything." He didn't tell her about Zanil or the betrayal, only that the movers had spied on him. Naledi didn't ask questions. She grabbed her phone and a notebook. "Okay, we go back to the roots. Forget the flashy moves, Zanil. I mean, your sponsor likes. We do raw, old-school Clarksdorp pantsola mixed with new-age piano." They worked through the night and the next day, fueled by energy drinks and sheer desperation. Thabo stripped away the polish Zanil had forced on him. He brought back the grit. He incorporated movements that mimicked the daily struggles of their life. The taxi hand signals, the dodging of potholes, the heavy lifting. It was aggressive, ugly, and beautiful. Naledi watched him, her eyes wide. "This is it, T-Man," she whispered. "This is the ghost of the location." Thabo felt a flicker of hope. He wasn't dancing for Zanil anymore. He was dancing for survival. Club Galaxy in the Clarksdorp CBD was packed to the rafters. The bass from the sound system thumped against Thabo's chest like a second heartbeat. The air smelled of sweat, cheap perfume, and anticipation. The VIP section was cordoned off with velvet ropes, and there, sitting like a queen on a throne, was Zanil Khumalo. Beside her sat her husband, a large, imposing man who owned half the town's taxis, and surprisingly, the local ward councillor. Thabo peeked from behind the curtains. Vusi and the Matlosana Movers were already backstage, wearing matching gold lame outfits that looked expensive and ridiculous. Vusi smirked when he saw Thabo's plain white vest and gray Dickies pants. "Did your sponsor run out of money?" Vusi taunted. Thabo didn't respond. He was scanning the crowd for Nality. She was in the front row, squeezing her hands together. The MC, a local radio personality, grabbed the mic. "Clarkstorp, are you ready to crown the king of Amapiano?" The crowd roared. The energy was electric, violent, and perfect. Thabo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This was the moment. The stakes were no longer just about the money. It was about reclaiming his dignity from the woman in the VIP section who thought he was just another toy to be played with. He tightened his laces. It was time to go to war. The Matlosana Movers were up first. As Thabo predicted, they launched into his stolen routine. The crowd went wild as Vusi executed the spider crawl perfectly. It was painful to watch. That was Thabo's soul on that stage, being butchered by a rival who didn't understand the emotion behind the movement. Zanil was clapping politely in the VIP box, a small, knowing smile on her lips. She locked eyes with Thabo backstage, raising her glass in a mock toast.
She enjoyed this.
She enjoyed seeing him squirm. She wanted to see if he would break. But something else happened as Vusi danced. He slipped, just slightly. A micro-slip on a patch of spilled drink. He recovered, but the rhythm was broken for a split second. The crowd didn't notice, but the judges did. And Thabo noticed. He realized that the routine was too technical for Vusi. It lacked the flow. It looked rehearsed, mechanical. It wasn't natural. Thabo felt a surge of cold confidence. Vusi had the moves, but he didn't have the story. The music faded, and the movers struck their final pose, panting heavily. The applause was deafening, but Thabo knew he could top it. He didn't need to outdance them technically. He needed to outfeel them. He walked towards the stage wings, his heart steady. The DJ cued his track. A custom mix Nality had cut for him. "Give it up for T-Man," the MC screamed. The lights dimmed, turning a deep, moody blue. Thabo walked onto the center of the stage, not dancing, just walking. The crowd quieted down, confused. Then, the beat dropped, a slow, heavy, menacing log drum. Thabo didn't explode into movement. He started slow. He mimed waking up, rubbing his eyes, the struggle of a morning in the township. He moved into the robotic, repetitive motion of a laborer, then broke it with a violent fluid ripple of his spine. The crowd gasped. He was telling a story. He danced the frustration of the youth, the anger, the hunger. He incorporated this spider crawl Vusi had done, but he did it backwards, distorting it, mocking it, reclaiming it. He looked directly at the VIP section, locking eyes with Zanil. He gyrated with an aggression that was almost obscene, a direct challenge to her power. He was spinning, kicking, sweat flying like holy water. The crowd wasn't just cheering, they were screaming his name. He was channeling the anger of every boy who had been used, every dream that had been deferred. He ended the routine not with a pose, but by collapsing to his knees, one fist raised in the air as the music cut abruptly to silence. For 3 seconds, the club was dead silent. Then, absolute chaos erupted. The judges were deliberating. The tension in the club was thick enough to choke on. Thabo stood backstage, his chest heaving. Nality rushed over, toweling him off. "That was spiritual, Thabo," she cried. But the drama wasn't over. The MC walked onto the stage, looking flustered. He whispered something to the head judge. The music stopped completely. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC stammered. "We have a slight technical delay." Suddenly, the big screen behind the stage, usually reserved for sponsor logos, flickered. A video began to play. It was grainy, clearly recorded on a phone. It showed a bedroom. Zanil Kumalo was on the bed, laughing, handing a stack of cash to someone. The camera turned. It was Vusi. The audio was clear. "Here's the routine," Zanil's voice said. "Make sure you humiliate Thabo. I'm bored of him. I want a new champion." The crowd gasped. A collective shriek of shock tore through the club. Vusi, standing on stage, turned pale. In the VIP section, Zanil dropped her glass. It shattered, the sound amplified by the stunned silence. Her husband, the taxi boss, stood up slowly, his face a mask of thunderous rage. He looked at the screen, then at his wife, then at Vusi. Pandemonium broke out. The Matlo Santa movers tried to flee the stage, but the crowd began to throw cans and cups. Cheaters! Cheaters! The chant began. Zanil's husband was shouting. His bodyguards were straining him from doing something regretful in public. Zanil was being escorted out by security, her face hidden behind her designer bag. Thabo stood frozen. He looked at Naledi. She was holding her phone, a small, triumphant smile on her face. "You," Thabo whispered. Naledi shrugged, her eyes gleaming with a ruthlessness he had never seen before. "I told you, T-Man. I work at Chicken Licken. Vusi comes there every day. He talks too much. And he leaves his phone unlocked when he goes to the bathroom." She had hacked Vusi, found the video he secretly recorded for leverage against Zanil, and played it at the perfect moment. It was genius.
It was terrifying.
The judges, frantic to regain control and avoid a riot, grabbed the microphone. Due to clear evidence of tampering and disqualification, the head judge announced, his voice trembling. The winner of the Matlo Santa dance-off is Thabo, T-Man Molef. The crowd erupted again, this time in validation. The victory was messy, scandalous, and absolutely undeniable. Thabo was the last man standing in the wreckage of the evening. The morning sun rose over Klarkstorp, indifferent to the chaos of the night before. Thabo sat on his mother's stoop, counting the cash. 50,000 rand. It was all there. Zanil's marriage was over. The scandal was the talk of the entire Northwest province. Vusi and his crew had gone into hiding, their reputation in tatters. Thabo handed a thick wad of notes to his mother. She looked at it, then at him, and for the first time, she didn't ask about school. She just nodded, a silent acceptance of his path. Thabo walked out to the gate where Naledi was waiting. She was wearing new sneakers. "We made a good team," she said, eyeing the rest of the money in his pocket. "I'm your manager now, right?" 20%. Thabo laughed, a dry, cynical sound. He looked at the girl he thought was innocent, realizing she was the most dangerous player in the game. 20%, he agreed. He had his dream. He was the king of Klarkstorp. But as he looked down the dusty street, he realized the dance was different now. It wasn't just about joy anymore. It was a business. And in Klarkstorp, business was war. He put his headphones on. The beat dropped, and Thabo Molef danced, no longer a boy, but a survivor of the rhythm.